Michael with United Veterans Worldwide, having some technical difficulties today, but trying to work through it. Excited to be with my friend Carlo today. Carlo and I found each other on Instagram of recent. He and I had a phone call about 3 weeks ago and felt an instant connection to him, his story. We talked through a lot of different facets of military, including some imposter syndrome, some guilt, some mental health stuff, and a journey that he's on today. And so, without further ado, let me introduce you to Carlo. And Carlo, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, one, thanks for that. I don't know. I'm a Canadian Forces veteran. I did 12 years. I'm an immigrant to Canada. We came up when I was 6 years old. Grew up around the Hamilton area, and I think my dad joined the reserves. So from that moment on, I think my career path was pretty set in stone. Like I don't think I ever wanted to be anything else. And then I think I was in the reserves in high school, and then after 9/11, I remember being in the library watching the second tower get hit, and that was it. I put in my paperwork to transfer to Reg Force and join the infantry after that. I don't know how much detail to go into.
Yeah, no, that's great. And what year was that when you joined?
That was 2002. It was. I went 2001. I was in the reserves, and then I transferred Reg Force, and I guess my paperwork actually got screwed around because I had done a basic training already and done a year in the reserves, but I didn't have a trade qualification, and at the time they were trying to decide whether I needed to do a Reg Force basic, or did I meet the requirement by having a year in already. And I was at a service battalion unit. I think I was a mechanic with my dad. And so once one of the clerks had told me that was the delay, I was like, okay, well, whatever, I'll go do basic training again. Like, it's not the hardest thing on the planet. And after already years of Army cadets and then already being a reservist for a year, I actually had a really good basic training.
I don't ever hear anybody say that, so that's good.
Oh man, because I think once, if you were to go do it again, you understand the game. They're gonna yell at me for something. So why don't I control that? And instead of, I don't know, maybe making the same mistake and I didn't put my sock in the right, I would just give them something new. So that way they would hit their achievement. They yelled at me and then move on. But, I already had my weapon skills. I already had all my drill. It was, and there's no stress, right? Everything is mapped out for you. So you just a genuinely, and it's outside of Montreal, Quebec, Canada, that I did that basic training, and that's not a bad spot to do it.
Yeah. And you mentioned that you were an immigrant and you came through Hamilton, and is that in Ontario?
Yeah, that's right, southern Ontario.
Excuse me. Oh, allergy. Okay, so your parents immigrated from which country?
Dominican Republic.
Yeah, Dominican Republic. Yeah.
Yeah, so my dad actually, he went and studied maritime engineering in St. Louis, Missouri. And so when he wanted to leave, once the instability, corruption, everything just started to get to a very noticeable level, he just didn't want to be in the country anymore. So we actually went to the U.S. Embassy and was like, hey, here's my stuff. Here's where I studied. But the necessity for maritime engineers wasn't very high. So they gave him a 6-year wait period. And then he went over to the Canadian Embassy and they're like, yeah, cool, come on in 6 months. And so Canada.
Yeah. And why not? I don't know if I told you, but my mother was originally from New Brunswick. And so she was born and raised there with her family. So half my family's Canadian and the other half is, started in California, really. So, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Both with the same acronym, CA. CA. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I don't think, New Brunswick is I say this now, it's like the heart of Canada. Like those are the most loving, kind, take care of one another. Like the East Coast of Canada is just, yeah, it's another space.
It is. Yeah.
And then, yeah, you got California, which I think is just heaven on earth for all the fun activities.
Yep. Yep. Well, and I was just there too. I was on a cruise, and we left from LA, and it was a good experience. So you went into the military, went to the active force, and active force you went right into what? The infantry?
Yeah, I went light infantry. Well,
Okay.
I went infantry, and then I did everything I could in battle school, which is our trade qualification, to go into a light infantry battalion. And at that point, actually, I realized that we still had para companies. So everything within whatever realm I could affect it was to get myself to that battalion and then into that company. And so, yeah, that was from 2002 to 2005.
And then you joined an airborne unit. We would call an airborne unit a parachute unit.
Yeah, then I got the Maroon Beret and went into, well, we only had a company at the time. Like when we lost the airborne regiment back in 94, 95, whenever they got disbanded, that was our like dedicated unit. And then it got spread out to each regiment had one light battalion, and then each battalion had a company that was airborne qualified.
Yeah, yeah. And your airborne school, is that in Edmonton?
No, it used to be.
Okay.
It actually, when I did it, it was out in Trenton, Ontario.
Okay.
And that was pretty fun. Actually, we had a TV crew follow us because they were doing the Truth, Duty, Valor series. And so, I'm on that. I have my memory for life. Although there are things about that course I'll never forget. Because we also got really lucky. So I joined 3rd Battalion PVCLI, and they had been our first deployment to Afghanistan in 2002. And so when they came home, I was augmenting them, and we were pretty light at the time. So then we got a bunch of battle schools sent to us in a row. And then that ended up, like a lot of guys actually got really lucky and got like pipelined straight into the company. And then we had 2 full jump courses run at the same time. And that's where the TV crew was there. So pretty much the entire company was on jump course at the same time. So that was also a really amazing experience. And then I think yours is the same as ours. It's a very professionally run course. So it was a really amazing time to get to do that, and then to do that with all your buddies that you were going to be working with.
Yeah. No, that is very unique. I went with people that would go to units all over the world. Never saw most of those guys ever again in my airborne training. Professionally run to get you over the fear of heights and to trust the equipment and the process, right? But also a place where lots of injuries occur.
Oh yeah.
My injury started on this shoulder with an airborne jump in Ranger School. I got knocked out coming out of the plane. My reserve chute hit my face and everything opened up, but I was knocked out. So I'm falling so heavy, I landed on my head and on my shoulder and tore all that muscle, but I didn't know it. I was just like, oh, that hurts. Let's get up and let's keep moving, you know?
Well, and the part of the whole, you're on course, you're with your buddies, you were doing your Ranger stuff. So all that is like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I have no injuries. I don't even, let's go. The medic's trying to talk to you.
Yep. My hand was full of blood because it cut the chin. But I was like, no, I'm good. Right. Like, keep pushing. You know, it's funny you mention airborne school because when I was going through airborne school, President Bush, George W. Bush, came through airborne school to do a tour. And I was supposed to demo this course while I'm sliding down this zip line, and at a certain place they lower their hands, and I'm supposed to drop and tuck and roll. And just before I drop, I turn my head and I catch eyes with George Bush. And I dropped, lost focus, and was like, and his face was just like, what? And my instructors were, they were so hot mad at me, dude. Like, unbelievable. They wanted my head. But, anywho.
I love that. What do you like? We're kids. We are children running around playing as adults.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
No, on that TV program, whenever you know how like programs when they cut for a commercial, they'll show like whatever repetitive clip. Well, they keep showing this one landing, and it's this old guy. Like he got on the course, must have been like his dream. Like he was an infantry. I want to say maybe an engineer. I don't really remember, but he broke both his knees on that jump. On the clip, that's the one that they show every time it goes to commercial. He goes feet, knees, face. Yeah.
Brutal.
I remember that. That was a pretty funny one. Yeah, we had some. Yeah, jump school is just carnage, right? Like anything that has a 30% casualty rate is just, it is what it is. Yeah, we had to. I was pretty thankful to get through that one because we did actually. It would have been around this time of year. So like I'm outside right now. You can see snow on the ground.
Yeah.
It's just gorgeous right now.
And where are you right now?
Yeah. I'm in Paris, Ontario. I'm at a buddy's place. But the ground was so hard. And I remember doing all the jumps and like, it's just frozen. But like the grass, you can still see grass. So it's just landing on concrete every fucking jump.
Yeah, it hurts.
Oof.
Yeah.
I think I'm complaining on the show because every landing was like a front left, or they were all the same, and so that side of my body was getting bruised up. And I'm like, can there just be any sort of wins? Because I don't want to do this landing again.
Yeah, it is a high injury prone. I remember one guy, I kind of looked up, and it was one of my successful landings. I landed in mud, so it was the softest landing I've ever had. And I see this guy not unhooking himself and just getting dragged across the airfield. And I was like, pull it, right? No, he didn't. So
that's, man, you just brought up so many great memories. on one landing, I didn't even touch the ground. My rucksack hit and I landed on my ruck and I hit shins on it. So it laid me perfectly on my rucksack. Didn't even touch the ground. And right beside one of my buddies, like within, I didn't see if it was a night jump. It must have been within like 6 feet of him. And he had no idea it was there.
Oh. Yeah, the biggest fear is when you have a parachute and you got someone that undercuts you and then you just burn in. You know, we're not jumping from that high up, right? It's for the international group who's watching today. Airborne can be a scary experience, or it can be a fun experience if it goes really well. And we're not talking about those guys who are jumping out with those nice controls and landing on their feet. No. That's not us. We're like, plah. Yeah.
17 feet per second. Jump off a 2-story building or jump out of a 2nd-story building and just fun.
Yep. That's it.
When I did my jump exchange in for Menton days in Fort Lewis with some first group guys, and I was the Canadian. Like I was the transition. So the first of the stake was all US, and then it was us, or vice versa. But either way, I was the transition guy, and so I was shooting the shit with Buddy, and I'm like, "Hey man, you're jumping our equipment. Do not try to foot this. Like, this is a bad idea. Don't do it." And he was like, yeah, no problem. Sweet. We land. Oh, no. So, yeah, we were the first because then we landed and I was looking and just waiting for him. I had my stuff all packed up and I just didn't see him. I'm like, whoa, pretty chill winds. It's not like we were scattered. It was out of a Chinook. And then, he comes sauntering out after like 7-10 minutes. I'm like, dude, what happened? He's like, oh, I knocked myself out. I was like, oh no, what'd you do? He's just, I want to see that head. I was like, you tried to stand up. He's like, yeah, I forgot. I was like,
can't do it. No, not designed for that. Well, so that experience obviously has a big impact on our memory because it's something that the civilian sector, even people who like do jumps today, never jump that low. So they'll never experience something to that degree where the chute, and my chute had holes in it. And they said as long as it's not bigger than 3 basketball rims, and I was like, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die on this thing, right? Like,
yeah.
it was rough. But what happened next? What was your next venture? So you went light infantry.
Stayed within the infantry for 3 years. So I went light infantry. I got my reconnaissance course. Felt that I was like the peak of all that is an infantry, right? Like everything in the military, you do one thing and then you're actually at the bottom now, and now you do the next thing, and now you're at the bottom of the next thing. But once you get like recce qualified, the only thing really left is Pathfinder. And yeah, that's such a rare, like pretty much like getting a Ranger course for us as a Canadian.
Right.
So, you're feeling pretty hard charged. You've been around for a few years now. You understand the game. We're supposed to get a deployment, or we did get a deployment in 2004. And I was a standby for it. And one of the guys dropped out, and I was meant to go on. So like every infantry, I'm about to go do my job. Let's go.
Yep.
And I got bumped for another guy who actually went in and like fucking full on sob story, like begged, borrowed, and pleaded, and he got the spot. So he deployed and I didn't. And I don't know. I got a call from my best friend I was actually living in his room in the barracks. And he was like, yeah, man, this is kind of a joke. We're just driving around. We're not really doing much. We're just getting yelled a lot by the fucking older dudes. And so I was like, fuck, like, okay. And again, not showing really any respect. Total lack of knowledge. I was like, man, I didn't join the military to become a peacekeeper. I don't want Bosnia, like the late Bosnia tours. Like, I don't want that. That's not. I joined to close with and destroy the enemy.
Yep.
As childish a statement as that really is, but that's what it was. Like, they're bad people, and I gotta go get them.
Yep.
And so I put in for special operations.
Mm-hmm.
I was denied that option, and the reasoning was complete bullshit in my opinion. And so then I said, okay, well, I don't actually need your permission to do this from my sergeant major. For us, anyone can try out, try forces. It doesn't matter. And if you don't have the support from your unit, they don't care. They'll still bring you out.
Wow.
So I called the unit and was like, hey, like, I want to try out. I'm not getting supported to do it from here. And like, yeah, no problem. We'll submit your paperwork from this side. So I went in and told my sergeant major that. And at that point, he was like, Carlo, you've been performing at this level and you kind of spiked and you had like a one negative interaction. And so, we just want to see another full year of you here, battalion. And I was like, yeah, that's not going to fly. And it was fucking stupid shit anyways. So yeah, I went in, I told him like, look, I'm going to go over your head. This is what's happening. I've asked him. It didn't turn out. I knew he was from the unit. And so he was like, well, yeah, you'll go on selection, but you know where I come from and you'll never get picked up. And being a naive young fucking soldier, I believed him. I believed, everyone says it's a boys club, and to a certain degree it is, but,
Sure.
They're also looking for something. If you meet the standard, they're going to take you. But I didn't know that. So I believed him, totally deflated. And that was, probably like September timeframe. So yeah, that's out the window. So I'm like, all right, I just keep plugging away. I get brought into the office around this time, December timeframe, because my contract's about to be up the next March. And they're like, all right, man, so you're doing super good. We got you as the OC, like OC signaler, and we got you lined up for your leadership qualifications. You got your advanced promotion coming in. So yeah, like, here's the contract. And I was like, thanks, but no thanks. At this point, like, remember 3 months earlier, you told me I was a bag of hammers.
Yeah.
There's no fucking way I'm sticking around. So I'm going to let my contract ride out. I'll go join a reserve unit and then try out from there. And that's essentially what I did. I let my contract run out, moved back to Ontario. I don't know. I went to a reserve unit, and it's such a dick thing to say, but I heard them talking about the stuff they were doing and how hard they thought they were. And I was like, fuck no, like I can't go from a reg force to this. Like reconnaissance courses, it's a fucking grinder.
Yeah.
Like it was, ours was run by my unit. So it was like very, like we fucking went for it. In some very different climates. Like we went up to the mountains in British Columbia and did our navigation in like fucking in snowshoes. The whole, like, it was chest deep if you fell off in any way. And then we did our OP phase in the mountains, in the lower mountains in Chilliwack. And then we did our patrolling and everything out in Vancouver Island. And in like February, so it's anywhere for you guys, so it's anywhere from 30 degrees to it's anywhere from 20 degrees to about 40 degrees throughout. And it's raining the whole time.
It's wet cold. It's different.
You're just in misery. And we lost dudes, thermia. Like it was just a wild time to get through. And then these guys were talking about how their recce course was on weekends. I was like, you mean your entire course was done over? So like you knew you were going to be out for 2 days. So you're not sleep fucked on 2 days. Like that's not a thing.
Right.
So yeah, it was just kind of funny. So my ego at this point too was like, real brave. That. So I didn't end up doing that. I tried to pick up other work, tried to figure out life as a civvy. That did not last for shit. So I figured, okay, I'll join the military again. This time I'll pick a trade. I'll have something to fall back on. Because you come out of the infantry, like you're a glorified security guard on Civvy Street.
Yep. Which is sad, but
yeah. Well, I think now people are understanding the work ethic and the other things that we are very trainable. But, to a civvy that has no clue, they just don't understand that. Especially not like, we call, I guess the Marine Corps, the corporals for life. Like we get shit done. Like, hey man, I got to figure out how to do that. We don't know how to do it, but we'll figure it out.
Right.
But again, civvies don't really know that. So I ended up picking air traffic control. So I joined the Air Force. Phenomenal. I loved it. It was studying and all the things that I really was good at. And I definitely did like the trade, but it was only ever to get myself back in so that I can just go into the pipeline again. So yeah, I finished that. I was the top of my course, and that the only reason I really tried it that hard was so that way I could ensure that I was going to get posted. Like you got to pick where you got to go.
Yeah.
So I picked Vancouver Island, got out there, and fuck, I hated it. Like you want to talk about mental. Afghanistan was a shit show, but joining the Air Force was probably, I can't say it's a mistake now, but it was the most difficult thing I'd ever done mentally. Like the camaraderie isn't there. The leadership was non-existent. It was everyone for themselves, and I just hadn't been accustomed to or even seen any of that. Like we've had asshole leaders, but never was it so apparent that they would step over the guy in front of them and step on everyone beside them as quickly as possible in order to advance. And that was just not the environment. That's not the way I think. And so, I did not fit in. And regardless of how good at the job I was, I probably pissed off like 70% of the leadership there and or the people around me. So yeah, that was kind of a shit show. So as soon as I could, I put in for CSOR, which is our, if we had tier operations, our tier 2 unit. Because even with just a year away, you know, when you put special op guys, you put them in your mind as like these, even though, well, in Canada, I'd never even met, like aside from my one boss there, I never really met any of them, so I didn't have a clue. So it's just all in your imagination, all the cool ninja stuff that they do over there, like,
yeah.
And so I was like, okay, I've been away from the army. I need to get myself back into that mindset before I could try out for the tier 1 guys. So I started doing all that stuff. My unit realized that like I wanted nothing to do with them, and somehow an opportunity to go overseas comes up, because Canada is standing up a TAC-P unit, but not even remotely close to what you guys have over there. Like our TAC-P was, well, it was a complete shit show. I had 2 F-18 pilots that were JTACs, a bunch of, it just wasn't anything similar. But they, in their mindset, the Canadian forces thought, you know, we're going to deploy these guys and they're going to operate and learn to be like the US. And so my unit was like, well, shit, we have a fucking infantry guy in here. If there was ever like a use for this dude, this is the guy. Like, let's get him out there. So they offered me that tour. And I think I made the right choice. I pulled my paperwork for special ops and then took the tour. And that was late 2007. So then I deployed in 2008 with the TAC-P. And that was an interesting deployment.
Where was it?
We were in Kandahar. So, yeah, it's a, you know, spring, summer, and then I was gone in September. It was a 6-month deployment. But yeah, it was pretty neat. Again, you were just out there figuring shit out. Like we worked for Battle Group for a bit. I worked at the provincial level for a bit, just kind of figuring out what my role was. And this is what I mean with the Air Force was such just a toxic work environment. So they put me on this thing and they're like, hey man, you're going to be our guy. You're going to deploy. So we do workup training. So throughout 2007, I'm going and attaching with the battle group, which was a 2 PPCLI battle group. So same regiment, just different battalion. And so we're going out and I'm figuring out, okay, they've told me that I'm like one of 2 non-commissioned members in this thing, that we're setting it up. So I'm figuring out, what do we need? Okay, well, TAC-P, I need to be a radio guy. So I got to get myself a radio course and learn all that stuff. Mobilization. Okay, I got to get driver training and make sure that I have abilities to drive all the vehicles that are in theater. And while I'm trying to do all that, and remember, when you're attached to a deploying unit, that's who you're attached to. Like, that's your chain of command. That's, you no longer belong to your unit.
Yeah.
But my whole unit was I'm trying to think of the right words. They were very ignorant to how the military actually functions. And so they would be battling with my chain of command for deployment. And so I got courses and I'd be like, yep, I'm on a course. I got to get out to Winnipeg. Like, they're not even fucking paying for it. But because I didn't ask them, like I'm trying to, I don't know, I don't want to use too much rough language, but I didn't massage their, you know? And so like they flat out worked against me. They canceled courses. So when I actually got overseas, a couple of the courses that I needed to be more functional out there, I didn't have. So I wasn't able to drive. I wasn't able to pick up the little things that I just needed. But it was solely because somebody they just didn't understand the operational necessity of what the military is. And they just stayed within their own world. But, you know, even with that lack of any kind of leadership, my leadership overseas was phenomenal. Like, it was 2 F-18 pilots were the 2 bosses. They were fucking amazing. Zulu and Carlos, his call sign was Pimp. Yeah, they were just rock stars, and everybody within our unit was amazing. Like a bunch of captains from ATC, a few helicopter pilots. Yeah, they were just phenomenal. And so I got to see, I think, what most NCMs don't get to, and that's the whole battle space picture from the battle group perspective. And then going into the provincial level and then seeing the paperwork. Like if you wanted to move from one fob to the other or just get out somewhere and you need an air asset, when I was working in the provincial side, you had to come through. Now, they would come to the desk and they would talk to me and then they'd find out what my rank was. And they'd be like, oh, well, when's Captain so-and-so going to be there? And so they would never deal with me because that's the Canadian Forces. Like it's still very Britishy and like, oh, you don't have a degree? Well, you fuck yourself. Like, we don't want to talk to you. And it got to a point where I don't want to, I'm blanking on his name, but it got to a point where every morning he's like, man, what is going on? Like, why do I have so many fucking emails for all this shit? I was like, because they won't talk to me. They'll come in at 11 o'clock at night, 1 in the morning, and they'll be looking for you in order to move this guy here or get a resupply or something, and they just won't deal with me. And this captain, he was a Sea King pilot. He was incredible. Ooh, was he a Sea King? Could have been a Griffin. I don't want to screw it up, just in case he watches this. But he was a pilot and amazing man. He just sat at the desk and like pulled an 18-hour day. And anytime somebody came up to the desk, obviously they would go to him. And he was like, no, talk to Alpha. And he forced them right there. And that changed the pace right there. So now I was more engaged. I was able to provide more services, which is all I have to do while I'm working there. So yeah, I got to, I think, doing paperwork to move a M777 on a Chinook on a load, getting to do that, getting to put people, getting to just use all your little like fixer skills. Like I remember a Task Force 43, or some British cat walked in. He's like, hey, somebody told me you were the guy to talk to. I got to get to Gecko or something. And I was like, okay, when do you got to go? Next couple of days would be great. All right, give me a minute. And I just went around to the Brits because Canada didn't have air assets at the time. So we were just getting our NATO allotment from the US, from the Dutch, and from the Brits. And so I just went around and like, hey, anybody got something moving here or going anywhere near here? Because I got a guy that I'm trying to drop off at this fob. And like, it was just so much fun. And the US was the best to deal with because they're Task Force Eagle. One, they were rock stars, like the Kiowas and the Blackhawks were just fucking ninjas. But yeah, they were all about it. And so I would be talking with captains, with whoever, and just getting shit done. Yeah. And like, it was working with an operational force that just understood, like, yeah, this is your job. I don't care what rank you are. Let's go. Yeah. So, I think all the pride of anything that is to be deployed was met that way.
Good.
And then I got to even top that up. So 2nd Battalion was the battle group running the show, but the 3rd Battalion had a smaller omelet force, the observer, mentor, liaison teams. And they were doing security forces for that. So my old unit with guys that I had been in battalion with, that I'd done courses with, they were deployed as well. And so their JTAC was, they needed a ROMAD for him, a number 2. And so I fucking finagled the shit out of anything that I could do to attach myself to them for the other half of my tour. And like, oh fuck, the work I had to do to get Zulu to release Zulu's his call sign, Major Hamill, to get him to release me. He's an Air Canada pilot now. I'm always trying to run into him whenever I'm flying. But to get him to let me attach, it took me weeks. Hey, like, they're short of this guy. Like, I'm trained. This is what I'm supposed to be here for. But you guys aren't deploying because, like, you're 2 FAT pilots. Like, please don't go out and run around and play play soldier. Like, you're doing great work, prosecuting threats doing your stuff through all the Reaper and all the stuff. But like, this guy needs a guy on the ground. Like, he needs his, like, this is me. I'm going to be his radio. And it took me a long time, and I think I had hassled him for weeks. And finally, Zulu fucking loses his shit on me. Corporal Alpha, you're talking to a major. You will stand to attention. If I told you no, it's fucking no. And it was such an amazing small team environment at that time that inside I was like, oh, big man's getting his anger out. And so I let him yell at me, and I was like, okay. And I left his office, and I waited about 7-ish minutes, and then Zulu, and he just looked at me, and he was like, Carlo, like, what do I tell your parents? Like, I can keep you here. You're working. You're doing your job here. And I told him, look, that's not the job. Like, we're here to support the infantry, and they need a guy out, and I'm the guy. Like, if there was ever anyone that's going to be slotted into this,
right,
it's me.
Right.
And he's like, but what do I tell your mother? And I was like, well, you don't tell her anything, because that's not the role. And my dad understands. Like, he was still serving. And I think the next day, I rolled out with him. So I had to quickly get my PT test done for selection. So I did that in the middle of the fucking day in Afghanistan. What a genius idea that was, running around the tarmac. And then, I got on an RG. Yeah, I got on an RG and went out to Fob Wilson, and then spent half my tour doing security forces stuff, dismount, or like just being a dismount for the vehicle. Sometimes an omelet guy, sometimes I was just a dude on patrol, or rolling with Bucky, and we were Slayer 6 call sign, and just my tour was wild. Like, for the life of a corporal, it was incredible.
It sounds like such unique experiences, and the U.S. is nothing like that. There's no switching, there's no jumping. Like, if you finish a deployment and you come home, you're free game to do whatever. Really, you could go to another unit, you could jump off to a school, you could do all these things, but nah, there's nothing like that. So for you to have that experience and then go support a JTAC guy, which the JTAC guys I knew in Iraq were lifesavers. Like, they knew their stuff so well. They were professional. I remember bringing them into my tactical operations center, because I was the battle captain at that point, and I was having him run the air, and I was running the ground, and we got so much done so effectively. It was so perfect.
Oh, and Bucky was just an animal, and he's much shorter than me, and he was just a beast. He was a warrant officer, artillery, or was he a warrant? He might have been a sergeant at the time, but he was set, like, Zari districts, just an animal.
Yeah.
Like, I took my role very serious, that it was to protect him. I understood that, like, I wasn't the asset he was. And we would, one of the companies or something would get into a tick, and we'd be at whatever down the line, and we would just start hauling, because for sure I can coordinate, but you're adding a step. If Bucky can get his eyes on it,
yep,
it's a no-brainer.
Yep.
We're getting stuff done much more efficiently than somebody telling me, like, where they are, where the enemy is, and then I had to coordinate that with him, and then he has to talk to the, like, it just be. So he would just start fucking sprinting, like, man, and with his pack on, everything. Like, it was just, I was trying, like, I'd always tell him, like, dude, get behind me, like, we're running at it, get behind me and I was fighting to try to keep up to him. He was just hauling so much ass to get everywhere. Yeah, he was just incredible, and so having him for a boss, and he was technically my guy, even though I did all these other things. It was always if we weren't busy, then I could be a dismount, I could go on patrol, I could whatever. But yeah, Bucky was just, and yeah, he was on it. And realistically, anytime you're in any kind of a shit show, you put an F-16 or an F-18 or drop a 500-pounder, and like nobody wants to play with you anymore.
No.
Like that's the end of the game. Like they want to go home, and
Yep.
like, it was a good idea at the time, and I don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So working for him was, yeah, I loved every second of it. I think that's what really solidified. Like I got to try out for something more.
Yeah.
Like,
So what did you do?
There's more. So the deployment ended. Got home in September. Oh fuck! Goddamn Air Force! I land in Comox. I'm the only one coming back to Comox. So the battalions, like Edmonton was 3 VP, Manitoba was 2 VP. So like the airplane dropped them off, and then I got a commercial flight by myself, and I'm in uniform, whatever, and I get picked up, at the airport by my wacko, which is a major, the sergeant major, and my sergeant. And they're all clapping and being all like in the terminal. I was like, all right, cool. Like, yeah, I did a good job. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here. And then they proceed to get me in the vehicle, and they start driving me back onto the base, and they just fucking shit all over me.
For what?
These 3 spineless little bastards. Because like I said, I was on deployment, so I had put in my paperwork and did it through the chain of command to try out for JTF2. So they got the email saying, yep, his selection date is, I'm guessing in October, I can't remember, whatever serial I was on. And that fucking pissed them off. Like, how dare I do that? So they got me in the vehicle and started fucking yelling at me up and down one strip and the other. Who are you to try out for this? And you didn't tell us. And I was like, well, one, I used my chain of command, which is I did the proper thing. 2, I kept the sergeant in the loop. I sent him an email letting him know that I was doing this. And that fucking spineless piece of shit was like, no, you didn't. No, you did. And this is the other thing that irked me about that piece of shit. He used to be a Patricia. He used to be infantry. So when I first got there, he pretended to be my friend. Wade Simpson. No, is it Simpson? Wade Smith. Wade something. Fuck him.
Yeah.
So he just flat out lies. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I'm starting to learn to keep my mouth shut. And so I just kept my mouth shut. So for the 20 minutes drive from the civilian terminal to the work terminal that on the other side of the airfield, they just shit all over me. I'm like, all right, cool. As soon as we get inside, like, fuck, it's not that hard. I went straight to the work email. I found the email I sent him, and then I went into the office and said, here's the email that I sent Sergeant. I let him know this is more than I needed to do for this. And they just took it, looked at it, threw it away, and just they called the unit. They tried to have me pulled off a selection. Again, like I said, they don't need their permission to do it. And they tried to make excuses like, oh, he just got home. He's not even going to be in shape. He's not fit, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay. So they took me off of the serial that I was meant to go on and pushed me to the last serial. And like, again.
What a punk move.
It works. Oh, yeah. So now internally, I'm like, oh, my God, these guys must think I'm a fucking whiny little bitch. Like I needed more time and my unit doesn't support me. And like, fuck all this shit going through your mind. And then I'm trying to train my ass off to like get into like selection shape. Trying to fight off injuries, trying to go to them and be like, hey, like I just need more time to train. Can I do PT? Can I do this? Because like I wasn't on the schedule. I'm in this weird like post deployment.
Yep. And
zero support from them. And like people had never done anything in their lives, and they're like, well, if you're not already in shape, you're never gonna be. And so whatever, I went and did my serial. I think it was in late October. Like the river was frozen. So yeah, it was definitely like winter at that point. Did selection, came back, fucking mangled, obviously. And I couldn't put my feet in the boots anymore. Like, just had nothing. And we at the time had like a UNICEF thing for like $2 on Fridays. You wear civvies, and I was like, look, I don't want to wear combats with running shoes. Like, I don't want to. That is, as an infantry background, that is the worst thing. Like, please don't make me do that. I'll just pay $10. Just let me wear civvy clothing for this week, and then it's Christmas leave. Like, it'll be fine. No, they just flat out go fuck yourself. So I was like, wow, I just finished selection. I don't know that I passed, but I made it through, and I'm fucking hurting. And yeah, no love. So anytime, so the control tower is actually like, it's on the airfield, but away from the base. And so anytime I had to go do any kind of paperwork, I would go downstairs, I would get changed into civilians, and then go into the base. I'm not going to walk around the base with combats and running shoes. Like, it ain't going to be a thing. Like, no.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was that. And just waiting for the email to know whether you get picked up or not. Yeah, finding out. Yeah, it was such a terrible environment. So then I get the email. You've been selected. You're now on to phase 4. I'm fucking losing my mind. Like, I had to leave the control tower, and like a big portion was that I just got, like, I needed to get away from Comox. It wasn't even that I get to go to JTF2. It's that I need to get the fuck away from Comox.
Yeah.
So yeah, you went on course. Fucking just insanity. Just so much fun. Actually having a budget and shooting and training and seeing your skill level get better. And then I got injured. Insert extract. First time ever using explosive entries. We were rappelling from the roof. They lower on like a water charge to blow the window, and my buddy was number 1. I was number 2, and I'd never experienced that before, so I didn't know how fast it goes. Like, once they explode, they know, so you got to go. But like, I didn't realize how fast Joe was, and Joe just fucking disappeared. Once the swarm gave him the go, and like everything was clear, he was gone. Like, I looked at the swarm, and then at the time it took me to look over at Joe to figure out he was on the roof. So I took one step, launched over the wall, and choked up, and there was like a little bit of a lip. And so when my foot came underneath the lip and I had choked up, so like I pendulumed right into it, snapped my ankle over and just hit the wall, pushed off, knew that my only job is, as number 1 goes in, I have to be on his back. Like, I can't allow his back to be exposed.
Yep.
And so I did a 1 bound from the roof down to like the 2 stories that I had to go down. And we went in, he went right, I went left. And I remember there was an instructor in there, and I lazed the shit out of him. And like, it was dark. And so I fucking saw him, checked his hands, and then engaged the targets that were there. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm fucked. Like, I just pointed a weapon. Like, I think we were using simunition, but still, like, I just lazed the dude. Like, that's a no-no, right? Go into the next room, we clear, we come back, they debrief us, everything's well. I'm waiting to get blasted. I go get blasted. I'm like, what? And I go to him like, hey man, I'm really sorry. He's like, what are you sorry for? Like, you did exactly what you're supposed to do. We came in, we fucking made sure that I wasn't a threat, and then you moved on. And that was the first moment that I was like, holy fuck, there are real soldiers out there somewhere. Like, God damn, this is the thing. And then as I went down the stairs, the adrenaline wore off, my ankle seized up, and I couldn't move my ankle.
Yeah.
And so I had achieved most of the things I needed for insert extract, except for an 80-foot rappel, which who gives a shit? I can land on my back on that one with a ruck, but the 80-foot fast rope. And that was like a must do. And I remember the course warrant coming in, and he's like, man, like, we got to send you home. I was like, no, I'm fine. Same as you. I was like, no, I'm fine. I'm fine. He's like, dude, can you do an 80-foot fast rope? I was like, 100%. He's like, safely. I was like, I'll be fine. He's like, okay, what if you aren't number 1? Can you do an 80-foot fast rope? was like, dude, that's an unfair question. Like, just let me fucking get through this. And so they sent me home, and it's a black hole. Like, once you leave that unit, nobody talks to you.
Yep.
There's nothing. So I just got back to Comox, and that was probably the first time my mental health started falling apart.
Well, you build up so much anticipation. There, you obviously know the units you've worked with before have really messed with you, and that's mentally taxing. And then the injury comes, and you're dropped, and you're just all alone again. And it is such a defeating feeling. I know how this feels.
But that's it. And I was alone. Like, to be alone in a crowd, that sucks.
Yep.
So yeah, being with them was terrible. Mental health, hadn't really dealt with any of the aggression from Afghanistan. So now I'm not where, because, like, I came home September, leave, that weird work environment, the selection, and then Christmas, and then going on course. So I really hadn't had enough downtime to actually process or deal with any of the, and I guess now I understand your parasympathetic nervous system, it never calmed down. I never knew how to understand it. So now I'm in aggro mode all the time. I'm driving and I'm seeing garbage bag on the side of the road and speeding up and going to the center lane, and somebody got too close to me, so I dominate the road and I'd run them. Like, it was the first time that I really knew, like, wow, this is weird. Like, I am in a whole other space. And not knowing how to deal with it, like not knowing who to talk to about support. Again, I'm on an Air Force base. They don't have that.
They don't know.
Like,
yeah.
And that's a terrible statement to make, because they do know the mental health aspect, but they don't know the infantry angle of it. Like,
and it's different.
How I show it. Yeah. And so that was a big one. Like, as I saw my driving, I saw my aggression, my anger was through the roof. I had a short temper for everything, and luckily, I was good at my job. And so as a controller, I can sit back on the fact that I'm following the rules, and there really isn't rank when you're in the tower, because you're working. And so if someone's doing something stupid, yeah, there's probably a polite way to do it. And there's something, but like, I can lay back on, I was right, you're wrong, fuck off. And obviously that didn't help at all in the environment in that unit. Plus the lack of support in any kind of way, even with them sending me on my leadership course. Yeah. It was just shit. And now I'm not really in the unit because they know I'm going to leave, or the expectation is that I'm going to get picked up for the next one. So I'm really not part of their chain. Like, they don't want to promote me. They don't want to give me anything, but they absolutely have to. So now I'm feeling like I'm stagnating here. I'm not wanted here, and I don't know if I get to go back. So how does that? And yeah, I was having, I would say that's like, I think that was my first real, like, problematic drinking. Like, I've done drinking, driving at some point in the past. But that one was like trying to cope with shit, not just like stupid, like, we're at a party and I'm drinking and like,
and I can handle it, whatever. Yeah.
And so that was like that was the first, and I was like, okay, this is a thing. And then luckily I got selected back. So I got to go back for my second try at it, but now I'm one of the older guys, and something's up, like, where I was having fun with the instructors and things were going well. Now I'm fucking, like, focused on, and I'm getting shit on for stuff, and like stuff that were taught, like, that I had been previously taught with them, I was applying, and they're like, well, we didn't teach you that on this course. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought we were supposed to, like, you hired me because I'm an outside the box thinker. We're 70 yards shooting long guns, but they're like, yeah, we're going to run them dry. So shooting from the obstacle, run down, hit some targets on the move, shoot underneath and in front of this vehicle, and then walk down to like the 25 to engage with your pistol.
Yeah.
But this is my third time running through the fucking thing, and I'm not allowed to like mag up. So when I'm at the obstacle and I run my gun dry, I got no more mags, I check it, I throw it over my shoulder, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to do pistols going downstairs with a rifle banging my nuts, and like this is a why not treat myself to success? And I'm I'm in a barricaded area. Holy fuck, did I get? And that's what I mean. I started getting yelled at, and the worst part is he even told me, he's like, I saw that you did it and it was safe, but we didn't teach you that here. And I was like, you 100% taught me that. And he's like, well, not on this course. And now I'm like, oh shit.
So what's going on? Yeah.
So something somewhere along the way, something went, and this is where like the boys club of that unit tends to come out a bit. And yeah, I just started getting shit on for doing what I thought was really fucking smart. Like, so on my first course, I had CSOR guys with me. CSOR, like I said, is the lore. They were fucking ninjas, right? Again, they got to go to the range all the time. They were deployed. Like, they were ninjas. They just didn't get that extra little bit when it comes to CQB and hostage rescue stuff. But like, they were checked out dudes. So we're about to go on the rappel tower for insert extract, and I hate having things on my belt. I don't like having a gun on my thigh. I don't like cool. It looks cool, and you're a bit of a cowboy, but it pulls your pants down. I don't like it. And when you're rappelling, there's a line coming. Like, I just don't. So one of the assaulters, he had his pistol up on his chest, and a couple of those guys from CSOR, that's where they ran their pistol as well. So I was like, sweet. So three of us put our pistols up top and showed up in the morning, and one sergeant decides to fucking blast us. Who told you could do that? Blah, blah, blah. You haven't met the time. Like, do you know that you can still achieve your timings, like for your, any of your emergency drills or your transition drills from your chest? And we're like, well, we don't know that we can, but like, there's an assaulter that's doing it, and like, I think we can too, but we didn't say that. So they just yelled at us because he's like, you don't know, so don't do it. So we put our shit back to our hip. So now fast forward, I'm on the next year. I'm out. We had done all the training. So now we're just fucking around with the different rifles, like playing with AKs and whatnot. And we go to one of the ranges that has the pop-up targets, and it's set for the transition drill and everything. So I asked one of the course guys, like, hey, is it all right if instead of just having it on the 4-inch, I can just put it up to my belt and just make sure that I can make the timings? He's like, yeah, no problem, Carlo. So I do it, and I test it, and I make sure I'm taking all my time. And I didn't put it on my chest. I just brought it up a few inches. I go to the range, and we're fucking around with the AK, it was with the AK, and I just get signaled out, and I get blasted. Who the fuck told you could do that? And I'm like, I think I started to see the writing on the wall, and I just kept my mouth shut. And I didn't say that I had asked for permission. I didn't say shit. I just let this guy fucking jack me up in front of all my course mates. And now all of them are thinking, man, this guy must be a fucking glue bag. Like, what's going on? And it's funny, because like now in between each, what do we call those? In each section, so shooting is one, CQB is the other. So we do course peer reports, and I get fucking, and it's the bell curve, and I get peered low, and I'm like, oh shit, like, hey, Carlo, here's a warning, like you're low, and I'm like, what the fuck, man? I've been running around making sure everybody's got ammo, making sure everyone's fed, like, I'm making all my timings. I'm a good soldier. Like, I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing.
It gets political at a certain point.
Oh yeah.
They're afraid because you're getting busted on by the instructors. They're like, I can't make this dude look good, so he's an easy target for them too. And peers they will sell you in a second.
Oh yeah. And like I said, I was one of the older guys, so now like there's a whole wave of like young men going through this that like, they don't have a ton of experience in the military to go, oh yeah, this is just a fucking course. Like, yes, it's JTF too, but it's a fucking course in the Canadian Forces. Like, it is what it is still.
That's what Ranger School is like too. I was
yeah.
older. I was with a bunch of young dudes who thought they were the hot stuff, and the easy target was the older guy. I was older.
Oh,
Even though I was
man.
stronger and I was faster and I was more qualified, didn't matter. They stuck together as the young group and they were targeting. Yeah, it's crazy.
Well, I don't know that like you're right. I don't feel that target, but that part of like definitely got blasted on did not help me. And so after they leave, we're in the room and I'm like, look, guys, I got voted low. Please let me know if any of you have an issue with me. Please come and talk to me. Like, let's figure out what's going on. Something's just let me know what you think of me so I can have a chance. Cause like this is kind of important. Like if you're appeared low throughout the entire course, like, you know, in the let's say whatever 7 times that they do it, 3 of them, you're gone.
You're done. Yeah.
And so nobody has says anything. Like
Of
they're
course not.
again, like I said, they're a bunch of kids. Nobody said anything negative. And then I'm cleaning my rifle, and there's actually a guy that was from my battalion who was actually my Section 2 IC when I first got to battalion. And this dude's a fucking rock star. And yeah, and we're cleaning rifles together, and he just trusts me and says, you know, Carlo, I had you ranked number 1. And so that to me like helped. But he was a guy that I still, and I actually, no joke, I literally just talked to him today. And he's a guy that I had looked up to. Like he is the epitome of quiet professional. Like when I saw him in battalion, I was like, he maybe said 5 fucking words, and you were just like, whatever he said, you were like, yeah, that's what we're doing, like, period. And then, and so him saying that to me, I was like, okay, so I'm not crazy. Like I am showing up and doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I'm not licking anybody's ass. Like I'm just doing me. But I still didn't understand. And then, yeah, we go through, yeah. So I ended up getting injured again on insert extract. This time I was doing a rappel out of the helicopter. We used the figure 8 system. I don't know fucking why, because in the stalls they use a grease system. So if you do let go, it breaks you. But attention not, as I was transitioning from like full on to slow, knocked my hand off. And I didn't know this at the time. One of the guys on my chalk told me this like maybe 5 years ago. He's like, yeah, we weren't at 80 feet. We were actually at 100. The pilots had let the bird climb. And to the point that the swarms on the helo were worried that we were going to run out of rope. Oof. So my internal clock was, when I lost control, was, okay, I'm only like 10 to 15 feet off the deck. Not a big deal. I'm going to smoke in and it's going to hurt, but you know, they're going to laugh at me and maybe I'll get in trouble, because the only other option was to jam my fingers into the figure 8 and I'm 100% off the course. Like I'm done at that point.
And these are split-second decisions.
And I had enough time to think of all this. And then I fucking hit the ground. And holy shit, like I fucking hurt. So I actually did lose at 10 to 15. I was still at 30, 35 feet. And I hit heels ass and just crumpled. And like, I got so lucky. Like my plates were on, my carrier was on, my weapon was slung across me. So like everything kept me upright. So I didn't snap over in any direction. I just crumpled. So my knees, my ankles, like everything took in. And so the bird that I jumped from, my chalk ended up stabilizing me. And then that bird went, got doors, and then took me to the hospital. And I just remember laying there, because I had just been talking to another guy, Tom, about this, and he's like, "Man, when somebody shits himself, like that's a pretty major thing. Like your body is shutting everything that's not important down, and like just that's." And I guess we were talking about that from doing a TCCC, but. So I remember this as there's shit in my pants. And so I'm trying to talk, and the medic is like trying to keep me stabilized on the field. And
yeah.
And I can't see shit, right? I'm only looking at like where I'm like my little window. And I'm like, yeah. And I just remember yelling for the medic, and I'm like, Eric. And he's like, yeah, Carlo, yeah. He's coming around to my feet. What's going on? What's up? I was like, I shit myself. And I started laughing through the fucking pain. And he's like, oh, and I was like, because I thought that was important information. And he said, no. And you know, all the weird emotions come at that moment. Like, now I know it's my second try. I don't want to go home. I'm laying on the ground. I'm on a spine board waiting for a helicopter, and I'm begging the medic, don't let them send me home. I'm fine. And now the reality, as I'm making that statement, like, slips in. Shit, dude, this is your second try, and like, they don't like you. Like, you have. I'm someone that you have to like be around for a while to get the flavor for. And I'm like, this year I didn't have enough time. Like, they don't fucking like you. And I'm like, don't let them send me home. I'm fine. And now the emotion of it kicks in and tears are coming out of my eyes. I'm like, dude, don't let them send me home. Like, I'm fine. And I just, you know, when your brain locks up and you just fucking repeat that. And again, to the medic, like, and not that like he's the most important person on any battlefield, in my opinion, aside from maybe Bucky, but like, not the dude, right? Like,
right.
Not the dude,
right?
And I was just like, don't let him send me home. And so now I'm on a spine board. They fly me to the airport or to the hospital. The hospital fucking leaves me on the spine board for 5 hours. I am in so much pain in this podunk hospital in Northern Ontario. And like, I can hear the guy beside me. He's like some old dude getting blood transfusions there all the time. They're treating him, and I'm on a spine board with possible fucking what Eric kept saying. He's like, dude, stop moving, because like the spine board was so fucking painful. I was like, dude, I gotta move. He's like, can't move. Like, there are razor blades in your spine. Like, you don't know, don't move. Just think you have razor blades in your spine.
That is so scary.
Fuck.
Yeah.
They took me in the x-ray. They missed that I had a L1 fracture, compression fracture, and they missed my tail. They missed a bunch of shit that was fucked up on me. But I remember when the doctor finally came and they got to check your sphincter to make sure that like it tightens back up. And when she's got to stick her finger in my ass, I'm like, that's right, bitch. Fuck you. Like, get that poop on you. Like, I've been laying in it for 5 hours. I was trying to take pictures where I could, but they got the final laugh on me. So when they cut all my stuff off of me, they put it all in a bag. I don't know why, but they kept the poopy stuff in the bag as well.
What?
And so that's been in my locker for like 2 weeks, and I'm trying to rehab my way back. I'm trying to like I was on crutches probably within 2 days. But my spine just wasn't my spine wasn't allowing me to release. So if I like to put my sock on, I had to surprise myself and like slowly get there. And if I did anything too fast, my spine would protect the fracture and I just couldn't breathe.
Yeah.
And so like I'm trying to stay. And this year, the way that they were running the course, they had like built-in like not breaks, but built-in like recovery periods. So like luckily it's the end of insert extract. And so there was a recovery period before the next phase, but the next phase was fucking navigation. And that's a grinder. And so I'm trying to figure out I like anything to stay. And so for this week, I'm doing physio, I'm doing all this stuff. And I go to get a new kit, and the guy's like, well, where's your old stuff? I was like, well, it's in a bag in my locker, but the hospital cut it all apart. He was like, what? And I was like, oh, I'm the guy that fell from the helicopter. He's like, oh. And they just, supply there is just, here you go. He just throws me, $1,200 Arc'teryx kit. And I'm just like, sweet, let's go. So then the joke is there's a smell every time I touch like my locker. I touch the bag when I'm putting something in it. I'm like, what the fuck is that smell? So finally one day I go to open the bag. It's just this rancid shit covered clothing mixed in with my stuff. So yeah, the hospital still got their last laugh on me. And yeah, so they ended up, so I just tossed that. But I remember being in front of the physio at the end of the week, pretending I was fine, doing lunges. And I'm just like, oh, everything's fine. And I'm doing lunges, trying to like smile and not show that I couldn't breathe and that like my heels felt like they were about to explode. And And like, no, I'm fine. Everything's fine. And I don't think I was fooling anybody, but they were all civilians, so they're trying to, they're letting you be an adult. And finally, one of the docs is like, there's some dark spot on your X-ray on your foot. I just want to go get that checked out. And I went and got a CT scan, and November 10th. Yeah, because the accident was actually November 1st. So November 10th.
Of what year?
2010. I got the CT scan, and this is where I just made shit happen. A friend of mine's mom was a nurse at the Children's Hospital, and she was like, there's no lineup for our CT scan or like our CT machine. So like, I'll get you in. And so I went in and got it done, and they found a bone had fractured off. But like, I've been walking around and everything. I'm like, I'm fine. So with the doc, kind of got a little bit of trouble for getting the CT scan done on my own. But I was like, again, you hired me because I have a brain and I'm able to make things happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, the doc there was like, we're not going to do surgery. The whole thing's split right off, so it should go right back in. And I was like, perfect. And then so I went back to talking with the course warrant, and I was like, yeah, like I want to continue on. And they're like, dude, nav phases. Do you think you're going to be able to do in Northern Ontario the distance that you got to do in the timeline? And I was like, give me a shot. Like, fuck, I want to. And he's like, no, like, dude, don't mangle yourself. Like, you haven't failed anything. You'll come back next year. And in my stomach, I knew, like, if I leave here, I'm never coming back.
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it went. So I went home, and this is now all my dreams I felt that were crushed. They were all over. And this is the time, like, I had a pretty bad drinking and driving. Somehow I got home, and I remember waking up and being like, how did we get here? And he's like, oh, you drove. And I was like, what? He's like, yeah, man, you drove. And I had little flashbacks of it, and I was all over luckily it was like 3:00 in the morning in Comox, and like nobody's on the road. I was all over the road. Like, we're talking like flashes. And I knew I had to sort some shit out at that point, but again, didn't have the capacity to even ask for help, let alone admit that I had anything wrong with me. Fast forward to the next year. I hate myself. I hate everyone in fucking Comox. And I applied, and they responded with, thank you for applying, but no thanks. We feel you lack critical thinking and operational maturity.
They had to put something.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And that devastated me. I was like, these guys think I'm a fucking thud. Like, I'm a piece of shit. Fuck. And so now my mental health is pretty much tanked. I am miserable every day, and I'm just getting by. Just like, you can't skip a day at work. You'll go to jail. So like, at least I'm going to work every day. But like, now I'm popping pills for my back pain, because now I'm like, just everything's fucked up.
Yep.
It probably took me a solid 4 more years from the injury to even realize. But by this point, I'm already out of the military. I got out in 13. I was frustrated. I finally, the one day I go to get help, I go and talk to the therapist on base, and he misdiagnoses me. And he's like, oh yeah, you're just angry. You need to find a new job. And I'd already tried within the military to change jobs, but because I had an eye condition, I tried out for search and rescue. I didn't want to do anything of that shit, but I was like, you know what? I got to try out for some kind of elite unit. And sorry, not that they're not elite. When I do this, they're like elite, like just Carlo. I need something more. And so I try out, I do the selection, I pass their selection, and then I get found medically unfit because of a surgery that I had to pay out of pocket to stay in the military and not go blind with. I'm a diver now, but they said I couldn't dive in the military because of it. And now there's nothing to look forward to. I even tried out for the Skyhawk team. I broke my elbow snowboarding like months before the training camp. And so then I go and I get this diagnosis, and the guy's like, yeah, you're just angry. you got to switch trades. Well, I can't switch trades in the military. They won't spend one more penny on me because they might not get their money back. And so I fucked off, and I put in my 30-day release, got a job in the oil fields, made some money, luckily didn't get into drugs and alcohol there.
Yeah.
And my partner, she pushed, and she was talking to the VA at the time, and my case manager was like, hey, like Aaron's saying, you're having a hard time. I'm like, I'm not happy, but like, who is happy? I got to go to work, and I got to make sure I provide a living for my family. That's it. And luckily they convinced me to go to we have operational stress injury clinics. They convinced me, Aaron and the case manager there convinced me to go in, and at the clinic they diagnosed me, and they're like, yeah, you got PTSD and fucking severe anxiety and severe depression and hypervigilance. I was like, all right, well, doesn't depression come with PTSD? They're like, no, PTSD is its own thing. You have depression for something else. And I'm like, fucking A, like, this is fun.
Yeah.
So I try to ignore it. That doesn't work. And I commit to full-time treatment. Now I'm on like a VA thing. They're paying for me, and I'm going to treatment like every week and just trying to make things make sense. I had some amazing guys that like they made it okay for me to not be okay. Like this big guy Phil in Comox, and we're talking. Pluto from Popeye.
Yeah.
Do you remember? Like,
of course.
Pluto from Popeye.
Wow.
In engineer form.
Wow.
And he just over me, and he's like, so Aaron was the exercise phys on base, and I guess they had talked at some point, and so he just walks up to me and he's like, hey man, how you doing? I can't look him in the eye. I'm fine. Everything's fine. He's like, no man, how the fuck are you doing? And like I knew what he was asking me, and I was like, I don't know, man. Like I feel fucked up. Like my emotions are all out of whack. I don't know what's happening. I'm watching TV and a commercial of something I don't give a flying fuck about, and I'll start crying. Like and I'm not like sad. Like my eyes just start. I'm emotional, and I don't know why. I'll hear a song. Something will anger me. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening to me.
Yep.
And yeah, he gave me this big fucking hug, and yeah, he allowed me the space to be okay with not being okay, and it not being okay. Like I'm not like it's. He opened that door, and there was another guy from battalion that I had run into, and actually before my buddy Aaron got killed in Afghanistan, pre-deployment. He was like, hey man, go piss on one of the tires in the lab, and then go tell Aaron to check it and tell him the whatever is leaking. And I'm like, wait, you want me to tell Aaron to touch my piss, and then he's obviously going to try to smell it or something? I was like, are you fucking nuts? I'm not doing that. Like Aaron will murder me. And so, Jeff Gravel. And so we had stayed in contact, and he was one of those guys that had been well ahead of us in getting the work done and talking about it and being open about it. And he really helped me navigate just what I was feeling about how I was feeling. And so he was one of those like older guys that had experience, and he made it okay. And, he chatted, and he opened the door, and he explained some stuff. He's like, yeah, you got PTSD, but remember, just because you're fucked up doesn't mean you're allowed to do fucked up things. Like, it's still you. You're still in control. Like, because I think we were talking about like dudes using PTSD as an excuse to beat their wives or to drink and drive, to do whatever. And it's like, it's still you. Like, you're still making a choice at some point. Yeah, you're feeling like shit and you're angry. You don't understand, but like, you don't get to pawn that off and say, well, it's not my fault. Like, no, it's not your fault you have this. It's your fault you acted on it. And so, yeah, he's one of those guys that like those two come to mind very dominantly as a force. And they that's when I started breaking the whole chain of feeling shame. Because the more I talked about it, the more I knew that there was someone else suffering. It made it like, well, yeah, it's okay. Like this is the normal fucking thing.
Yep.
Now I still wasn't like raw as I am now about it. Now fast forward to my friend Jesse killing himself in 2015. And like he had a stuff going on, but I was like, how could he feel so alone? How could he not? Like, he was a sniper. He was that love dude. He was the piper going around to all the battalions. Like, we had talked about our dreams of renting motorcycles on deployment. We would steal the snipers' quads and go. Like, I got pictures ripping around the perimeter of Kandahar, and the fucking bike helmet, pistols slung, t-shirts and shorts, like no armor, just booting. Like the Germans in those towers are sort of like, who the fuck are these? Like, this isn't a vacation, you goof. Why are you ripping around in quads? And he had bought an airplane, and we had talked about flying it to South America, and so we just had these big plans. And then when he killed himself, I was like, all I could think of is how could he feel so alone that he didn't reach out to anybody? Like, if anyone would have been above the stigma, it was Jesse. And again, he had his own issues to deal with, but like, that's the way that I took it all. And again, I didn't even understand suicide. I thought it was like, I had some very childish thoughts about it. And so I had to do a big growing up phase. And at his funeral, we had a bunch of guys from deployment, a bunch of guys from battle school. And because Jesse's coin, he was on the previous course to me, so he went to a different battalion, but his coin is 2 numbers away, which anybody out there, if you ever find a PPCLI coin, check the serial number, because one of those is mine. I don't know where I lost it, but it's in the universe somewhere. But at his thing, a bunch of guys had gone to CSOR, and they had now been there at the unit for a while. And so like they had gone through training courses, and that's where they told me, oh yeah, critical thinking, operational maturity, those are just catchphrases. We had to write something down, like you were saying.
Yep.
And because you got hurt rappelling, they don't know whether it was the equipment or you. Like, yes, someone gets injured on every course, but like, there's no way to prove whether it was negligence or not.
It's a risk mitigation.
They had those 2 words fucked me up.
Yeah.
Like, fucked me up. Like, and so, yeah, so that at least helped. And then Jesse's funeral helped, because from that moment forward, I never shied away from acknowledging that I have PTSD. And I actually stopped drinking with like, it's not good for anyone, right? Like, it's alcohol is a depressant, and we suffer from depression. But it was a great way to force the conversation, which is usually my ulterior motive in any conversation, is mental health. Is this, like, you tell an army guy or anybody, like, hey, you want a beer? Oh, no, I don't drink. Why? Like, it's almost instant.
Always.
They don't ask right away, within the minutes. Like, oh, like, they want to know if you're alcoholic or whatever. It's like, oh, no, man, I suffer from PTSD and depression, and alcohol is a depressant, so I don't drink. And either in that same Congo, like that breath, they all acknowledge that they have something wrong with them, or within 10 minutes, they'll share that either something's going on with them or somebody else in their family. And I would say that was one of the most therapeutic things that I've come across, is just being vulnerable within your peer group, or with anybody, but especially within our peer group. And we're a funny bunch. And it helps, because you're not carrying that weight by yourself at that point. Like, your battle buddies got some of it. They always did. We always had each other's backs. But we never let them. We never gave them the opportunity to fucking help.
Nope.
And that was that. And that's the gift that I say Jesse gave to the world through his suicide, at least through me.
It woke you up.
Oh, fuck. And the combos with anybody and like, look at you and I just connecting, but like, I've connected with the lifeguard in the Canmore pool, who was a paramedic in Ontario, and young, like, he was a young man, like, we're talking 19, 20-year-old kid, and he's a lifeguard now. And he's like, when I told him that, he's like, dude, I went to a motor vehicle accident, MVA, and like, I can't see another dead baby. Like, that broke him. He saw it, and it just fucking broke him. And I know so many firefighters that are the same, and cops, and like, everyone's dealing with something, and it's just, we don't talk about it. So that's, like I said, that's become my little agenda in any convo is like, how are we gonna lean into that?
Well, I'm glad that those two guys were there for you when you needed it, Carlo, because if they hadn't brought you to a point where it was okay to not be okay, I don't think that you would still be with us today. And
oh man,
the reality is that there are so many of us, including first responders, with veterans, and really anybody who's undergone trauma, that if they don't find somebody who can normalize them not being okay and talk about a way of getting to a place of hope, because hope doesn't always come right away, even when it's normalized. Hope is a later progress marker that says, oh, now I feel hope for the first time in years, right? Like, but if it wasn't for those people who've made that impact, we wouldn't be here, which is why this channel exists, which is why those conversations that you start are there, because we know that we've got to be that source for somebody else like they were for us.
Yeah, 100%. Like, it's, you don't realize how sneaky mental health can be, how it's just that voice that's destroying you. And when, like, let's say you surround yourself with a bunch of toxic people, you're in a cone of fucking bullshit. You'll believe whatever. Well, imagine that's the same cone all by yourself. You'll start believing the nonsense that you're saying, and you'll make it into a very, very real. And so you need to share and to get, and you're right. I wouldn't, and I never thought, and it's funny you mentioned that hope and you said it that way. I never thought that I would be susceptible to suicide. And I was. And
I believe the same way. I was like, I'm too grounded. There's no way I'm going to get to that point. And yet I did.
Ooh. Oh, yeah. Well, and mine came late. Like, mine came first fucking year, and first year of COVID, Christmas. Now I'm divorced. I've gone through all this stuff. I thought that I've reached a certain level with therapy and all these things, and I'm going to equine therapy, and I'm aware of what cognitive behavioral therapy. I have all these fucking tools, but I still didn't fully understand them, implement them, really put the time and training into, hey, I'm stuck in my head. Ooh, time to ground.
Yep.
Hey, I just created a story. Time to reach out to buddy and be like, hey, are you upset with me? I created a story. Like, whatever it was. And so my suicide attempts came at that winter. And
what year?
I hadn't realized, I want to say that would have been like end of 2020, 2021.
Mine was 2019.
Yeah. And it just creeps up to you. Like, we're logical thinking humans, and yet it fucking gets in there. And I didn't realize that, yes, we're learning, but it's like any skill, like you start to learn a language, but you only get so far and then you stop. Well, now you have to start from scratch again. But there will be a point that you'll get to it. And from that point on, you're now fluent. It doesn't matter. You can take a break. Well, mental health is the same. And if you're in that beginner phase and you're like, oh, I'm doing well, you're just riding a roller coaster until you surpass that next level. The next downtime, the next bad interaction with family or spouse or dark
story or whatever,
it'll fucking send you right back down to the basement.
Yep.
And you're stuck in this fucking violent loop that, and it lasts for years. Like, mine lasted probably 5 years of this. And then it culminated with that last one of like, holy shit, I just closed my eyes. Actually, we're right around here driving across a bridge because I figured that was the best way to commit suicide, was to swerve off the road in my truck, go into a body of water, and then nobody will know that I committed suicide, even though I'm doing all this mental health advocacy. Why do I keep doing that? Like, I'm doing all this mental health advocacy. And yet I didn't want my family to suffer. Like I just wanted to look like an accident. And I was like, my life is fucking incredible. I am on a full disability with all the injuries that I have. I'm only in pain. Everything fucking works. Like I'm healthy. I have true freedom in North America. I have time and money to enjoy myself. Like, and the physical ability to do it all. How can I, and that's where the logic kicked in. How can I possibly think ending my life made sense? And I was super thankful for the people I have around here. They're spiritual minded people. They were doing breath work. And I committed to that. I was like, I don't know what I believe in, but I believe in all of it. Like I am done. I have to try every single thing. And so I just became open to all the hippie stuff. And so I did breath work. And then after that suicide attempt, I was like, or the attempts, I was like, okay, you know what? I want to do mushrooms. So I need to get off these meds. I got to go clear. I did it in a fucked up way. I went cold turkey, which was silly, but I did it properly eventually. And then I went and did guided mushroom ceremonies. And that unlocked, who the fuck knows, plethora of stuff from my childhood all the way up through the helplessness that I felt at the imposter stuff, the survivor's guilt. You just fucking name it. It started all coming and realizing, oh man, like a therapist will talk to you and you'll talk about the things you remember, but the trauma that's hidden throughout your life, you don't know your childhood stuff. I don't know what specifically about Afghan. Like, there's just so many things that it allowed for things to shift. And, you hear like Kyle Morgan talks about this tree bark stuff that he did in Africa. There's the ayahuasca stuff. There's just so much. And it's already like scientifically, they've done this stuff. Like the reason I did the mushrooms, or I bought into mushrooms, is because Joe Rogan did a podcast with a journalist that was attached to Marines, and he was talking about being part of that study. So the Marine Corps did the study and was like, mushrooms good, like get psilocybin out there. And so now it's about getting that out, getting as many people connected, starting to open up, starting to realize that there are other options. We have ways. And then really, like, I wanted to start a You Are Not Alone Canada, a charity, but it's not even a charity because I wasn't taking any money or anything, but I just wanted to share the story. Like, this is what a therapist is and isn't. This is how you use veteran affairs. This is the stuff that, like, here's a success kind of outline for what you can build on to eventually get to that space where, you're not going to fall down to the basement again.
I think it's
probably the hardest thing.
I think it's almost time for me to try one of those treatments. I've been like against it because my faith is about using medicine the right way, but I've also learned that the Food and Drug Administration in the United States is as corrupt as it can get, and I've been trusting a system that really wasn't helping me get fixed. And so if there's something else that can uncover a layer for my own growth, I think I'm at a point now where I'm open to doing it.
And, I like the faith stuff. I have my pushbacks on it, but, if you believe in God, the creator, right? Well, he created mushrooms.
True.
He created these medicines. He created marijuana. He put these things. It was man that at some point was like, well, I can't tax this, but I can tax that and whatever.
You're right.
And so it's one of those things that, like, I think these medicines are beautiful gifts to humans that allows us to just go into this deep state of connectedness. Like mushrooms, for how dark some of my journeys or parts of my journeys were, the light was so much brighter. Like I would have never told you that I believed in any kind of God or being or anything. And then I did the breath work and the mushrooms, and I was like, ooh, you know what? I can't tell you that there isn't one. I don't know. But I definitely do know that I'm connected to you, and I'm connected to this earth, and I'm connected in some way to all of this. Like, something is incredibly magical about everything that's fucking happening here.
Yeah.
I just don't understand it yet.
Yeah.
I haven't been able to navigate all of that. But these medicines get you into a space of like fucking profound love and connection, when all you and I in our darkest moments feel the opposite. Darkness and hate and fucking spiral of loneliness, when like we aren't. Like you know, you're on the other side of North America, and I am more connected to you than I like ever will, right? Like there's a bond that we have, and it's once you start letting it in, which is why I think the faith is very helpful. And when people are about it, it's a beautiful gift. So yeah, hey, you got questions about mushrooms or anything along those lines, you let me know.
Yeah. I think we'll have to talk offline and see what's going to work. But Carlo, you've shared so many experiences with us today that I think is so valuable to people's journey. You've opened yourself up and been vulnerable to share experiences that some people who are still so closed off today make them uncomfortable. But I'm glad, because the only way that true healing happens is when we finally break that mold and we stop holding our breath, and we can finally exhale and be like, yeah, I'm hurting, and I've buried this, and it's making me ill mentally, emotionally, physically. You've talked to an important issue of chronic pain, which is a huge factor for our global veterans and supporters, and what it's like to live a life of meaning despite having all these things. And I know from talking with you that you and I are still on our journey. There's still more to do, right? There's still more to heal. But I appreciate it. In the last 2 minutes here, Carlo, can you give some advice to our global audience here on if they're struggling?
Find the people that you trust and believe in that trust, and be vulnerable to them. Because if you're struggling, the likelihood is you're probably struggling alone, even though you have people around you that will be there. Be vulnerable, take that risk, and be open. That's the only chance not the only chance, it's the chance that you get to give yourself to realize that you are not alone, and that you are loved, and that you are accepted as you are. We keep trying to do this like journey on by ourselves, and like you can, it's doable, but we don't do it that way in the military, and you're on a military channel for a reason. Like, we do things as a team. Lean on your team. Give the people around you the opportunity to support you, because I think time and time again it's said, I would rather have you cry on my shoulder than carry you on it.
Yeah.
And that's our reality.
Yeah. Beautifully said. Well, brother, I appreciate it. I'm so glad to be in connection with you and to consider you a friend. And you can always count on me, brother. Reach out whenever you need. And I hope we can meet in person in the future and maybe do some event together. And it'd be a blast.
Absolutely. You know, the worst part is I didn't even plug the event that I just hosted with Cleared Hot. Oh shit, I'm a talker. But yeah, that's coming down the pipeline.
Okay.
That this is exactly it. Just building this community and like what you're doing is such a gift for everybody. And man, the feels that you must be going through, like, I appreciate all the effort and all the time and all the vulnerability that you're putting out to the world. Like, thank you for creating this space. I'm really thankful to be here. Absolutely mesmerized to finally connect and be part of this. Like, thank you. Thank you for bringing me in.
Yeah, brother, I appreciate your story. It's a great one, and I'm glad you're on such a journey of healing and helping others too. And we'll connect again. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Carlo.
Bye.